Loud. And we'll go ahead and start this and see if we have 25 people on the list. 26 actually, counting me. All right. And look, there I am. Okay. We should get some people to start populating our attendee list. So those of you entering right now, welcome. Welcome to our webinar on tree pruning. Pruning landscape trees, excuse me. Let me be official. All right, we have Janda here from the E-House, the EnviroHouse. So those of you joining us, thank you on this, what everyone describes as a beautiful Saturday morning, a day that would be better spent actually pruning, but now you're going to learn that right now on how to prune. So next time it is like this, you'll be ready to go. So welcome.
Go out at noon.
Yeah, you can go exactly right after this webinar. You can head on out. So,
right.
Let's see, letting everyone join here, slowly attending, everyone getting their morning cup of coffee or whatnot. And we'll go ahead and start. We'll let those who are coming in late catch up. So welcome to this webinar on pruning landscape trees. We did one on pruning fruit trees. This will be a lot different because you're not going to eat the things on the landscape tree is what I'm guessing. Today we have John with us. And Janda, why don't you go ahead and introduce us, and then I'll go over some rules and regulations about what we're doing here.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I am co-hosting what would be our workshop at the EnviroHouse, but we're still in a webinar state. Gator is our host and managing all the keyboard stuff. John Walkowiak is the presenter today, and John will introduce himself, but he's a forester, works with Tacoma Power's conservation office, and knows his tree stuff. So he will share that with you. John will also tell you about the tree coupon. There are still a few coupons left, and that concludes stops in the end of March. So stay tuned for that later in the webinar. I also wanted to mention next week we have all of the Saturdays in March filled. We will be doing one next Saturday on recycling, so it'll be Recycle Right. It will cover, what goes where and why a little bit. A lot of information in that one. And then the following Saturday on the 13th, we will be doing at 10:30 raising chickens and ducks. And in the afternoon at 1, we'll be doing how to build a secure coop and run. On the 20th, we'll do composting. And on March 27th, we'll be doing heat pumps again. So that's our coming lineup. And we will put links in where you can find past recorded webinars that you can also watch. And the how-to videos. So with that short amount of information for you, we will turn it over to, you ready to go to John, or do you have anything you want to say?
Let me do something really quickly. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. And John, sorry, we'll get you in just a sec. So welcome everybody again. As you noticed, you are muted and you don't have video for this webinar. That's kind of our standard operating procedure here at the E-House, so that we don't have to worry about anything. So one thing you can do to interact, though, is we have question and answer, the Q&A, where you can write a question that we can answer either directly through text, or we'll have our presenter, John, answer it at the appropriate time. Also, you can engage in the chat. If you'll notice on the chat, they'll say all panelists. There's a little drop-down caret, all panelists or all panelists and attendees. If you put that to all panelists and attendees, then you can communicate, I'm going to type it, with everyone here, not just the panelists. So that way your fellow attendees can also see that. From time to time during the presentation, there will be a poll like this one, and you have the choice to answer. Don't worry, it's anonymous, and you can answer this question. The first one we're going to hit you with is, how did you hear about this EnviroHouse virtual workshop? Was it through a Facebook event, Enviro News, email, EnviroHouse website, workplace email, friends or colleague or family, or other, which you could then answer in the chat. I heard about it from Janda. And so, and I'll give everyone about, about a minute or so to poll. And this is a good time to catch up on any questions that we have during that. But so go ahead and answer. We have 63% of the attendees answered. So make sure you vote early, vote often. Just kidding. You can only vote once. And I will put it on that and submit on mine. And I'm going to end the polling now. It's about 45 seconds. So let's take a look at the results. You can see that most people on this one heard about it from a Facebook event, which is good. It means our advertising dollars are going to the right place. And some people, a lot of people from news and the EnviroNews email and friends or colleagues. So great. Thank you, everybody, for answering that. Now, without any further ado, we'll turn it over to John. John, welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. So gonna try to make this kind of fun and exciting, get you excited because yeah, the sun is out and you know what, this afternoon would be a great time to do your tree pruning and be ready. So we're gonna make it kind of fun. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself real quickly. My name is John Walkowiak. I work for Tacoma Power. I am a conservation manager. And my job there is entailing things such as making sure that we get rebates and loans and other things for energy conservation projects and rebates and other things like that. I also am involved with renewable energy resource efforts that Tacoma Power is doing to meet state and federal requirements. And then I'm also kind of a champion or one of the champions for our shade tree coupon program. I am a forester and certified arborist by training, and I'm welcome to be back here and doing this project. So we're gonna go on to a PowerPoint here. I'm hoping that I can share the screen. So I'm gonna do that real quick and we will get started. And we'll try and make this as quick and easy as we can. Come on, there we go. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about effectively and safely tree pruning. And the first question that you see was just sort of a tickler down there. That was the poll question that Gator put up. But what we're going to talk about today is we want to understand a little bit about tree growth because that tells us how trees respond and why they have branches and all those things. We're going to talk about why we prune. We're going to talk about going on the road to the branch bark ridge. So it's not a mountain chain out there. It's actually on the tree. We'll talk about that. We want to tell you how you don't get ripped off. And that doesn't mean an unscrupulous salesperson. It really talks about making sure that you do your pruning correctly. There are 3 steps to success to pruning and what needs to go and what is the right union. So we'll talk about that. I want you to fear the tree topper. Okay, that's the old days of a song you might have heard, but this one we put in for fear the tree topper. We're going to talk about the best time to prune. We're going to talk about the right tools for the right job and how to prune without a ladder for those branches that you can't reach. So my quick sales pitch for you, if you are a Tacoma Power customer, you could be eligible for rebates or zero interest loans to help replace or improve your heating, water heating, insulation, and windows. And there's other ways to save energy. And if you are not a Tacoma Power customer, but maybe a PSE customer, they have similar programs. So I really would encourage you to consider that as an option. And you can see there are web links there for programs. And if you have a business in our service territory, we actually have incentive programs there to help people save energy. So just the one quick sales pitch for being a Tacoma Power conservation manager, okay?
And I did put those links in the chat so people can get to those. So just so you know. So
thank you very much, Gator. Appreciate it. Okay, so obviously trees grow in 3 locations. They grow up, they grow out in terms of diameter and size at the trunk, and then they grow down in the roots. Those 3 critical areas are very important for tree health and our understanding of how to prune trees. So I want you to think about trees being a series of cones, and each year the tree puts on a new cone, and it just gets larger and larger at the time. And as the branches and stems and roots thicken, they do it each year, and they just kind of grow out and out this way. So just keep thinking about being a series of cones. So a really good story to tell you is if I was to hang a horseshoe on a branch, and when the tree was 3 years old, and I came back 20 years later, would that horseshoe be at the same location? And the answer is yes, it would. Okay, but the branch might be thicker. The branch could have grown around the horseshoe, which sometimes you've seen things like happen. It doesn't grow higher. Once a branch is at a location, it is at that location forever unless it's removed.
John, real quick interruption
yes.
here.
Mm-hmm.
I live on Vashon, and we're famous for a certain tree with a bicycle in it. If you know about the bicycle tree, and that's what happened. The bike was left there, and now it's just part of the tree.
Exactly. Where I came, Iowa, there used to be one called the plow in the tree. And the basic story was basically a young farmer was excited about the Civil War and wanted to join the Union forces to help in the Civil War. There was a lot of Iowans that joined the Union forces during the Civil War. He leaned his plow against the tree, joined the service, and the plow, and then he never came back. And so the plow stayed there by the tree, and the bur oak that it actually just grew around that plow. And so it's there still waiting for the farmer to come back. So again, the concept here is idea about rings. I think all of us understand what growth rings. You can count the growth rings and understand that's how old the tree is or that piece of wood is. But there's one key part in here I want you to think about, and that's the area where the tree is actually growing. And it is kind of this area called the cambium, which is this one area right there. And the basic concept is it's right underneath the bark. And what happens is each year the cambium differentiates what woody cells should be bark and what woody cells should be wood. And that cambium exists under the entire tree circle or that tree cookie, but just underneath the bark. So if we damage that cambium in any way, we create wounds that can cause the tree to have problems. So you can see there are like fire scars in here where the tree basically grew around that fire scar, just like the concept of growing around the bike, the horseshoe, or the plow, okay? So here's our second polling question. Gator, if you could send that one up.
Here we go. Yeah, there we go. So why do people prune trees? Seems like a pretty straightforward question. To improve the view, reduce conflict or clearance, remove dead and dying branches, remove sprouts at tree base. Yeah, I was going to say that the story about the bicycle is the same as the plow. Oh, it looks like everyone's going for the all of the above so far. We'll give them a few more seconds.
Excellent. Excellent.
I imagine there are several reasons. Let's see. All right. Got about 80% voted.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and end the polling in 3, 2, 1, and we'll take a look at those results.
Excellent. Yep. Excellent. All the answers are correct. You bet.
Right.
All the above is the best concept there. There are lots of reasons for pruning trees. For those that may not be familiar, this is Wright Park in Tacoma. Really beautiful. These are European beeches that have that brilliant color right there. So just sort of a great tree to take a look at. So just a fun thing to know. Okay. All right. So again, why do we prune? Well, safety and security, kind of pruning up for those types of things so you can see in. Maybe not blocking signs or intersections, those types of things. Concentrating the growth on the best branches. So it's kind of like thinning out the garden or the forest. You're focusing the growth area on the best branches. For tree health, flowering and fruiting. So you can prune at certain times of the year that can enhance or can hurt flowering or fruiting techniques. Conflicts and clearance, and we talked about that. Probably the most concept thing I think about is like, branches that are hanging over a stop sign or I'm thinking of the clearance above the sidewalk or, you know, the roadway. Okay. View. Some people prune their trees because they want to see a view of the mountain or the shore or whatever else. We are lucky enough to have a view of Mount Rainier from our house. So you bet I prune my tree appropriately so that I can keep that. And then, of course, storm repair. So I want to talk about what I'm going to call, there's going to be 5 golden rules of tree pruning. The first one is you never prune more than 33% of the live branches at any one time. I'm going to repeat that. Never prune more than 33%, 1/3 of the living branches at any one time. Now I know it says living, so a dead branch doesn't count. They can be pruned at any time. That's not in this formula, but living branches. So you can see in this case here on this kind of crown lifting effort, they removed a lot of the branches from above that were causing conflicts. They're no longer really needed for the photosynthesis of the tree. It's really up in the upper part of the treetop, which foresters and arborists call the crown. The upper part of the treetop is called the crown, okay? And the reason why you don't want to prune more than 33%, it tends to put the tree under stress. And when it puts it under stress, the tree does several things. It will probably sprout. There are advantageous buds just underneath the bark that will cause sprouting, so then you'll have more of a headache. But the other part is sometimes it can put the tree under stress, which can make it susceptible to insects or disease and other problems. Okay, so golden rule 1, never more than 33% of the living branches at any one time. Golden rule number 2, when you're pruning and you need to prune back, in this case, this is a clearance one for a utility situation, we always make sure we prune back to another branch. You don't just like snip it off. You actually prune it back to another branch. And that branch has to be at least 1/3 the size of the original branch. So you can see here in this demonstration of the blue ones that are being removed, you can see they're always being pruned back to another branch. So that's golden rule 2. If you don't do that, and we'll talk about that in just a second, it will cause the tree to do different things. It can cause the sprouting. And it can also create wounds that sometimes do not seal over when you do it. So don't want to just lop it off at the end. You want to prune it back to another branch. Golden rule number 3. We want you to focus on the damaged branches or crossing branches. That's the first things you want to look at. So those that are growing inside and crossing or rubbing, or those that may have been damaged, or those that are hanging down and are causing some conflicts. Always look at that concept as that's one of the best ways to start, okay? So you focus on damaged or crossing branches first. That's the 3rd golden rule. Okay, so question 3, Gator.
Here we go. Let's see. I was going to mention earlier while this question's up, what is your experience in pruning trees? I grew up in Sacramento where we had that mulberry tree. Like that was put in every neighborhood in Sacramento, and every year they would just lop it right off and it was just this, it was terrible looking, but you know, they grew back big. Okay, so never pruned before. I've been pruning, but want to be sure it's right. I've pruned, but have problem trees. I need a refresher or other, and you can answer that in the chat. We did get a question, and it's a very philosophical question, and that's, do trees feel pain when you prune it? It's similar to amputation of a limb. I said, well, it's hard to say if they do or not, but they definitely react to being cut. Physiological things happen, right? So.
Yep. I guess the thing, you know, it's the famous one, when the tree falls, does anybody hear it, you know, in the forest? Do you hear it? And I would tell you it's a hard one to answer. I don't know if they feel pain, but obviously we know that trees are living things and they communicate in different ways. So they react to when they're pruned or they're damaged. So that's the biggest thing. There's a reaction.
There is a reaction. Excellent. So I'm going to end the polling now. Looks like we have 66%. So last chance, 3, 2, 1. And here's some results. Let's take a look. Interesting. personally, I think I'm terrible at
Yeah.
pruning, so this is
Excellent.
informative for me. So
Okay. All right. All right. Excellent. Okay. By the way, this background picture here that's behind me, as well as in this photo here, is, of course, at Jedediah Smith State Park in Northern California, near the Redwoods. So near Crescent City, California, one of my absolute favorite places. So that's why that one's there. Okay. So I want you to understand the concept of a branch collar. Wherever a branch meets another branch or the main trunk, there is a branch collar. It's kind of a swelling that you can see existing right in here. It doesn't grow on what we're going to call deciduous trees. Deciduous trees are those that have leaves on them. Okay, deciduous trees, the branch collar tends to be kind of at an angle. And it really depends on the angle of the branch, the way it's attached. But the concept here is we want to know where we need to identify that branch bark ridge or that branch collar to help us understand where we want to target to prune. So our golden rule number 4 is we want to protect the branch bark ridge, because that branch bark ridge is basically an area of active cambial growth. And you remember I talked about just existing underneath the bark. The cambium region is the way the tree actually creates woody cells, and those woody cells will seal around that injury. If we damage that branch bark ridge, it'll actually take longer for the tree to seal, and sometimes it doesn't, depending on the size of the pruning cut. So again, we want to protect, we find that branch bark ridge and we want to protect it because we want the tree to seal. And that is the one concept to keep in mind. Trees do not heal. So if John cuts himself, which he does very often, okay, even when he wears gloves or some way or another, he hurts himself. Generally, new tissue will hopefully grow back. Now, if I was to lose a finger, that doesn't grow back. But the basic concept would be if my finger or whatever, there's new tissue that kind of heals my injury. On a tree, it doesn't heal, it seals. It grows around that injury, okay? And so that's that callus wood that we've talked about in the past. On you're dealing with conifers, and conifers for everyone is basically evergreen trees, which could be like firs or pines or spruces, cedars, all those things. They have, their branch bark ridge tends to be more of a swelling. So you can see that it's a little bit more visible than it is on what they're calling hardwoods. Hardwoods is another name for deciduous trees, okay, those with leaves. But the same principle holds true, is that we want to make sure we identify that branch collar and protect it at all costs. So before the equipment comes out, these are a couple things I want you to keep in mind. Each time you make a cut, it changes the tree forever. Can't glue the tree branch on, okay? It affects the tree's ability to gather sunlight and do photosynthesis for food production. It is depending on that foliage up in the crown or on that branch. Large limb or large branch removal can impact the form and balance, can affect the stability of the tree when it's blowing around in the wind, like we had a few nights ago. And if you don't do it kind of correctly, you can make the tree susceptible to what we call, foresters and arborists call decline, which is the decline of the tree health. Okay, so keep it in mind. I always like to use the adage, when you are cutting a board, measure twice, cut once. Well, that's the same concept. Always take a step back when you're pruning and say, okay, these are the ones I want to prune. And then you focus on those, and then you take a step back and see what it does. So we're always kind of taking a look back at what we're doing because we can't glue them back on, okay? So the famous barroom bet of all that John has always won is, can the strongest person in the room prune a branch off with one cut? And the answer is no, you can't, because trees and branches are full of lots of tension. There's lots of tension in the wood because it's a living thing and there's weight. And as you start cutting through that branch, you basically, trying to do one cut, it will tear every time. and it's really going to tear generally around this time because the tree growth is very tender right now. But what you'll see if you look at picture D is you see that that cut does not allow the tree to have kind of that nice rounded donut shape kind of callus wood to seal it. So the longer that wound is there, the more likeliness that maybe some type of a pathogen or insect could maybe be attracted to that wound. So here's our golden rule 5. There are 3 steps of success to pruning branches. In this case, we're going to prune a branch that requires a pruning saw. And what we do is we go up about 6 inches from where that branch collar is. We've identified the branch collar. We go up about 6 inches and we make an undercut. We make the undercut because we want to relieve that tension in the wood, okay? Because it's a living thing. It's still alive, okay? The second one is then we make an overcut to remove the weight. Removing all that weight gives us a lot of ability to deal with and protect the branch collar. And then you go to the branch collar and you make your final cut. And you can see here that there's no ripping, there's no tearing. We've relieved tension, we've taken the weight off, we've been able to do the pruning correctly. So this should be done no matter the size of the branch or the tool that you're using. You still want to identify the branch collar, relieve the tension, take the weight off, and make that final cut. So even when you have hand pruners, you don't necessarily, it depends a little bit. Do you need to do 3 cuts with a hand pruner? I generally go out a little bit, relieve the weight with 1 cut, and then I come back and find my branch bark ridge. Okay, because we're not pruning large branches. We're generally pruning branches under 1 inch or so with hand pruners, okay? So I want to talk about safety, and if you could go to question 4, please.
Sure thing. Why is it not a good idea to prune trees when you are alone? Give you a couple moments. I do have a question, and maybe this from the group. If there was damage to the top of a fir tree, can I fix this with pruning? The tree now has 4 or 5 tops. So maybe this is something you want to address in the future, or?
Yeah, no, we can definitely talk about that, but the answer would be you can still do it, and we're going to talk about a tool on how you can do it. We're going to talk about pole pruners.
Excellent. All right, so we'll give people about 15 more seconds. We got about 76%. So you could injure yourself, all of the above. Let's see, this seems to be a popular one right now. It's always the answer on the SAT, D, all of the above, right?
That's exactly right.
All right,
That's
let's
right.
take a look at those results. Most people said, yeah, all of the above, with a few saying, you could injure yourself, which is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, I always tell people the one thing, if you're out there pruning and working with a tree or whatever, you want to do, and, it's really nice to have good eye protection. I wear gloves religiously when I'm pruning. It always never fails if I decide, I don't need to wear my gloves today. I always cut myself. Okay. And it's never a good thing, especially with a pruning saw. They're really, really sharp, or the power tool, chainsaw in particular. You really don't want to go in to see your spouse and say, guess what, honey, I need to make a visit to the emergency room as you drip blood on the floor. Generally not a great idea. And it usually makes people kind of a little antsy. And I have unfortunately done that before, okay? And a coworker helped me get to the emergency room to take care of it. So again, you want to think about your eyes. In eyes, you get the sawdust from the saw, whether it's close to the ground. Sometimes a branch will come back. You want to protect your eyes. You want to wear gloves to protect your hands. We want to stay on the ground, and we're going to say no ladders. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. You want to use the right tool for the job. So you don't use, it's kind of like using a screwdriver to pound something in with the back of the screwdriver. That's really not the right tool for a nail. That's what hammers are invented for. You try and use the right tool. You don't use a chainsaw to prune a little water sprout. Use it for a larger branch. Okay, chainsaws and power pruners. First of all, those are circulating at about 10 to 12,000 RPMs a minute. when you use that pruning saw, chainsaw, the decision made, and it is made extremely quickly. They are extremely dangerous. It's very easy to cut yourself. I have done it. And so it's not great to have that type of an injury on your body. And luckily, I was wearing a piece of chainsaw chaps, which basically the fibers choke the chainsaw from doing it, but it still went all the way through there and did get me in above my right thigh. So it's still not a fun thing to happen. And then you got to know when to hire the right professional, okay? Because if it's something that's beyond your capacity, you know what? One of the hardest things all of us have is say, I can do it, I can do it. But you know what? Sometimes it isn't to your choice to do it. If it's because of your age, because of your size, or because of the equipment, or even the tree that you're dealing with, that's when you really need to hire a professional that has the equipment and the know-how. So again, I want you to think about what branches should we prune. I want you to think about the dead and dying twigs and branches. They can be pruned at any time. Anything overextended, weak and large, kind of hanging down. The basal sprouts, those are the ones that kind of are shooting from the base of the tree, from right at the stump level to ground level. There are water sprouts, which kind of are from buds that exist just underneath the bark. And those water sprouts basically are expanding and growing because they're reaching sunlight and they're having the opportunity, and they can take a lot of the tree's energy. And I've seen water sprouts 6 to 8 feet in 1 year. So they take a lot of energy from the tree where we want it up on the better branches. Weakly attached branches that could be declining. Those that are crossing and rubbing. So again, crossing branches, rubbing branches. And then we'll talk a little bit about this, but narrow angled branches, those that might have some ingrown bark or codominant branches where there's 2 tops, you want to make sure you prune one or both, okay?
John, really quickly, we're getting a little bit of a difficulty with technical audio from you. I don't think it's you. I think it's just the way things are going, but I just want to apologize and let everyone know, stay with us. We'll just try to slow down maybe speech so that we don't lose anything in the glitch. So please bear with us. It's like I said, we're stretching our bandwidth pretty thin these days. So
That's exactly right. Yep. Agreed. Okay. So here is a picture of what I would consider a typical shade tree that has not been pruned in some time. And again, I want you to think about the top of the tree is called the canopy or the crown. And you can see here, start looking at what branches can I remove. And so sucker branches are like basal sprouts going from the base. Why did those occur? Well, generally, most landscape trees and fruit trees, for that fact, are grafted trees. They're grafted on different rootstock. And sometimes there'll be a reaction from that graft that causes a sucker sprout. So things like crab apples, sometimes flowering cherries, they always happen, just as a reality. Dogwoods are another one that happens. You have to constantly on them. They can't eliminate them. Dead dying branches, obviously the one hanging over the person there is probably a good one to take out. Broken branches. And you can see what water sprouts are. Water sprout just comes kind of out of the tree branch at any point. It's not coming from the end of the branch. It tends to grow straight up. So you can see those. And then you can start looking at rubbing crossing branches.
John, I hate to interrupt here. We're getting some terrible audio right now. So what I'm going to ask is if you stop sharing for a moment, your screen, and then re-up it. We'll see if that maybe, if it's just the PowerPoint that might be dragging us. We'll see. Seems like we're just, no, it's not helping, but why don't you go ahead and reopen it and see what happens. And like I said, thank you everyone for your patience. It's just that time of day, 11 a.m. people start using it up. So let's see.
Any better? Any better?
No, your audio still sounds it. Sorry about this. So let's see what I can I think we're just gonna have to keep
Any
pushing
better if
better.
I remove my phone and just go?
Yeah. I'll turn off and see
I'm
if
gonna
that.
go without like my phone. Okay, so let's give it a try here. See what happens.
Yeah, it's still pretty bad. I'm sorry. Maybe yeah. Unplug and replug. I don't know. I don't know your headset. I don't think it's the headset, but that's a good suggestion. Maybe if you turn off your camera, John, and just do audio, then at least that might help. We'll see. Thanks for the suggestions, everybody. We're working these things out. I'm sure this is just a
Is that any better?
Yep, at least we can hear the audio. It's good. There we go.
Is that any better, Gator?
Yep, that's great. So we'll try that. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. All right, thank you. I apologize, everybody. Okay.
I would
So
say
again,
do this page, do this one all over again because I think it was all.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. You bet. No problem. Okay. So what I want to talk again is which branches you should focus on for tree removal first. Again, a basal sprout is also known as a sucker branch, and it grows typically right at the trunk line or right at the stump line of a tree. It often is an occurrence because some trees, and I'm going to say many landscape trees, are grafted onto other rootstock. So an example would be every apple tree, every crab apple is grafted onto a certain type of apple rootstock. And that way the trees are able to be produced quickly and give us the characteristics we look like. But sometimes the tree will sucker, the root stock will sucker like that one does. And there's really not anything you can do to eliminate it forever. You just have to be persistent and continue to prune it. The more shade that comes on that area, the less the suckering occurs. The next one involves what I would call dead or broken branches. And you can see in this picture, the person below. Obviously, it's a hazard. If a broken branch were to fall and hit anybody, it's surprisingly that even a small branch falling from a tree is still coming down at 30 miles an hour. So getting knocked on the head by a small branch still can injure you. So just keep that in mind. Water sprouts are those that tend to go just like up the branch, but they're not at the end of a branch. They kind of are from buds that exist underneath the bark. They often occur with a lot of sunlight hitting that area, and the tree is responding because it wants more area for photosynthesis for food production. And the thing about them is they tend to grow straight up, and they can take lots of the tree's energy that we really want to concentrate at the end of the branches. So water sprouts are important removals. And then the final one is those that are crossing or rubbing. Those again create wounds and errors. Okay. So we're going to go to the next one, I hope. So I want to talk about the right union. Trees connect oftentimes will have two branch unions. One of them is what we call a U-shape union, and that would be picture A. Picture, because it has that U to W-shaped union that you see, basically it has strong connections. The bark is grown out and pushed out. The tree has good connections for the two branches. That will be a strong union. In fact, that union would be if I was throwing my rope in there to saddle up and get into the top of the tree with my rope and saddle, I would be looking for that type of union to be able to put my rope through to give me support and strength, because I would feel confident that I have a strong union there. B is a picture of what we call a very narrow angled union. In this case, you can see it's almost very V-shaped and almost looks like that. That V-shaped wound, union has what we call grown bark. The bark is actually ingrown inside there, and that's the type that would kind of peel and break. And it's very common to see that happen on trees from windstorms, or when we get a heavy snow or ice, the weight will often break those types of unions. So we want to look at the type of union we have. So here is a picture of a relatively new residential area. This residential area had planted a series of trees in the parking area, or the planting strip, as you would call it, the area between the sidewalk and the curb, for these very nice homes. And you can see in this case here that this tree actually has like two tops. And you can see there's a U-shaped, a V-shaped problem in this case. And the answer should have been is this tree should have never been planted in this condition. The challenge we're going to have with this one is if I would prune off one side of that branch union, I would take over 50%, almost 50% of the live crown, which is breaking one of our goals. So when you're going to the nursery, always look for a tree that has a single stem as much as possible, okay? So this case, what would we do is over time, we would remove some of the lower limbs, try to balance the tree out as we could, but we can never eliminate that U-shaped union or that double top. It'll be there forever. It's just too much would be removed from the tree, and then the tree would suffer and go into decline. Here is the same street, just a little farther down, and you can see here this tree had a single stem. It has a strong leader, and you can see, yeah, it needs some pruning and a little bit, but that strong stem means we can work within that 1/3 balance, has great, stable, strong balance. So again, just like two trees down from this on the same street in this development, one tree was planted with a tree that has a double top to it, and one was planted with a single top. This is a thing I want you to think about, and it's called fear of the tree topper. This is basically when the tree is rounded over, it violates every one of the golden rules that we've talked about. It basically just indiscriminately prunes the branch of the tree at one time. It just kind of rounds it over. It doesn't prune it back to the branch collar. It doesn't prune it to another branch, okay? And so again, it doesn't even probably in many circumstances, if we were to look closely at that one, you'd probably see that it's not using the 3-step golden rule of how to protect the branch collar and that. So what's bad about this one? Well, if you can see, there's some little bit of foliage starting to come from various areas, very little of it from the top of the tree. It is all coming from sprouts off to the side. So this tree will have numerous sprouts that will occur. And the challenge here, when I asked, this was a retirement center. They had see the air conditioning units under the windows. And I asked them why they rounded over the trees. The answer I was given is they were afraid the trees would fall on the building. They thought the limbs were too high and they thought it would fall. This would bring them down in size. Well, the challenge I talked to them is because we have violated all those golden rules, they'll be pruning these trees every year. They will be dealing with injuries, the insect disease problems. In fact, if you look maybe 2 or 3 trees down from the first one, you can see bad angles. There's all kinds of weight. The truth is the weight of the tree is still there. That'll be doing the damage. It's the upper limb. So the reality here is my suggestion to them was to remove the trees and to replant and space them out a little better. They're a little too close. That's what they actually did. So it's kind of nice. These are success stories when an arborist can convince somebody to actually remove a tree rather than trying to save something that doesn't have opportunities, because it's going to save them more money in the long term. And rather than having somebody come back every year to prune out the sprouts, they're going to have a new tree going to offer better growth and enhance their property. So sometimes people ask me, John, when do we prune trees? Well, I'm going to tell you when not to prune trees. The concept here is you want to avoid bud break. So we are probably at about 2 or 3 weeks away from bud break here. Generally what happens is the bark of a tree is extremely tender at bud break and it can tear easily. Even if you were to follow the 3-cut rule, it still can tear. So generally I avoid when the trees break bud, and I wait until maybe May 1st or so, sometimes May 15th, depending on the growing year, when I restart again to prune. So bud break should be avoided. For blooming trees, those that you want to flower, let them flower, enjoy them. And then when the flowering's done, then you can prune. For trees that bleed, and that means they don't like drip blood, but they drip sap. And there are certain trees that are good sap bleeders. And those would be such as most maples and sycamores, London plane trees. They tend to bleed if you were to prune them in the spring. So if I was pruning a tree, maple tree today, and it's not unusual to see them dripping sap. It's not bad for them to drip sap. That's just their wound protection effort. But if you prune them summer, early fall, there's really not very much bleeding or sap flow. And the exception to this right time not to prune is the concept of conifers. You actually want to shape them. You're trying to keep the size down. It's actually, you want to do it when the leaders or the candles of those trees are a little bit softer and you want to cut them there. That will set a new bud. So oftentimes, if you've ever gone to a Christmas tree farm, you'll actually see people out there in the late spring, early summer, pruning those trees or shaping them to keep them tight and compact. The final thing I want to tell you is pruning takes time. You need to be patient. If you prune too much, you can damage the tree health. But if you prune it over time, you can really make a really great tree for a long period of time. And you don't hurt yourself at the same time. So again, a really nice shade tree that's blooming at this time, not a good time to do it. And you can see there are things that I would like to do. I see a large, branch off to the, in this case, the left side of the tree that maybe could use some work. There's lower branches there, but I couldn't do all of it at the same time because I would remove more than a third of the live branches at any one time. So John would actually work on this over a series of years to get it to where he wants it. So do I have a tree in my yard like this one? This is not my yard, unfortunately, because that's a really nice shade tree. I have a flowering cherry tree that was here when we bought the property. It was topped and the tree has been wounded, but it has grown back to the point that I can work with it. Every year I do a little bit just to make it a little better, okay? So I want to talk about pruning tools. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then I'm hoping, Gator, we can put me back on video.
Yeah, you should be able to.
My video.
We have a quick question about conifer.
So certainly.
So could we discuss a little on how to prune or trim a small evergreen tree that is less than 15 feet? Should we cut the top flat as seen in some places? So I imagine.
Okay. So it depends on what your purpose is. If you're attempting to keep the tree small in size, you can go in and reduce the leaders. So the answer would be yes, that would be one way to do it. It's usually good to let the tree get a little growth at this time and then to prune it back, but you have to prune it back to a bud so it'll seal around that injury. And that's how people shape them and keep them compact. So I do the same. The answer would be yes, you would remove the leader to keep the size.
Thank you.
So you bet. So I want to talk to you about some hand tools. There are really two different types, and I'm hoping this is a real true live demonstration, but unfortunately in our family guest bed, apologize for this, best I can do. So I'm going to pull this right here. There are two different types of hand pruners. These are what I call bypass pruners. They have a scissor action to them. These really work well for small branches under 1 inch in size, because what they do is they make an even cut on the branch. They don't rip or tear it. And so they work really well. This is a pair of Corona ones. There are ones that are called Falco. Those are also excellent. So they're my two favorite types, okay? So I apologize, I'm going to my little table here in our room.
Hang on, John. We
The
had
other
a
that
freeze up.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you could show those first ones again. We had a little bit of a freeze without seeing them, so we'll let it catch up.
Okay.
There
See
you
if
go.
we can do it. Okay. Bypass pruners. Good for under 1 inch diameter branches. And again, Corona and Falco are kind of the best name brands I have found to use for a long period of time. The second type are what were called anvil pruners. They have just obviously a little different appearance. You can see the appearance a little different. But the basic concept is they have a sharp edge at the top, and they have a flat edge where it connects. What this does is it squeezes the branch, damaging the branch bark ridge, even on a small branch. So I prefer and recommend the bypass pruners. They work so much better because it's an even. Okay. Excuse me while I safely put those down. I have a buddy that is helping me do this presentation. He's luckily snoozing at this moment. So I want to talk about pruning saws. And there are a number of different ones. Let's see if I can do that. There we go. So this is called a kind of a double tooth razor saw. And the basic concept is it cuts on the pullback. It doesn't cut going this way, it cuts on the pullback. The double teeth are really handy. They're very sharp. That's why I'm wearing my gloves. You can buy them in various sizes, but you can see they have a handle with a little attachment to them. There are ones that are all over the place that you can find at any hardware store, home improvement store, or online. So again, you'll see common ones like Corona, Falco, Fiskars, other ones. I'm going to tell you what I have found to be a professional favorite. And I was lucky enough to get a new one for Christmas because I broke my other one that made me cry. This is called a samurai sword. This is made in Japan. This is my ultimate favorite. It has been the one that cuts the cleanest, cuts the easiest for me, easy to handle, and it handles large branches and small branches up to 2.5 inches. I have really been impressed with it, but called Samurai. And that's exactly what the name of the company is, Samurai, so you can imagine. But I want to tell you that sometimes samurai saws can be cooler than they really are practical. So this is one that is kind of in a little scabbard type of thing. And it had an attachment, there it is, that could hook to my belt. And I thought this would be really cool when I'm hanging in a branch or hanging in a tree or doing whatever I'm doing, because it would be on my belt instead of my back pocket and then falling out. And I thought, oh, this is great. And the best part is it has sort of this sharp like handle. And I thought, ooh, this is so cool. But for whatever reason, it's not as stable as the folding saws. And though it's cool, it isn't one of my favorites anymore. It's pretty rare that I use it, okay? So the concept of those folding pruning saws, they work just outstanding. And the last thing I wanted to show you, being really careful here, again, it's hard to do, is these are loppers. And the basic concept is they can be, again, with that type of scissor action or bypass action, or they can have the anvil. Again, the scissor bypass ones are great. And these really give you leverage when you have to prune above your head. And they work really well for branches between, I'm going to say 1 to 2 inches in diameter before you need the saw, okay? But they work really well and they give you leverage and all kinds of things, okay? All right. Now, the next, so now we're going to go back to the PowerPoint real quick here, and I will stop my video for a sec, go back to the PowerPoint, okay? And hopefully that works well. So I want to talk to you about, this has been raised several times, about should you be pruning branches that are above your head being on a ladder? So if there was a question that I would use as a polling question, it is it safe to prune from a ladder? And the answer is not really, okay? Can you do it? The answer is yes. And do people do it? Yes. Can you do it safely? Most of the time. The challenge with being on a ladder is that you tend to overextend yourself. You lose your balance. You're reaching up with a tool that may require two hands. And the famous line is supposed to have 3 points of contact. You tend to reach farther than there, so you get off balance. So the famous line is, if your belt buckle isn't making contact with the ladder, that's not a good thing, because generally you lose balance, you can fall, all kinds of things. So I really don't like pruning with a ladder. I have discovered and really like what I call pole pruners. These are telescopic pruners, are kind of hand saws that are telescopic, and they basically can extend up into the tree. The one that I currently have is very similar to the one you see in the lower left-hand screen, has like little switches that allow me to prune up to 30 feet high. And
John, actually, you're not sharing your screen right now.
Okay.
And I did throw the poll up there, and we had 50% weren't sure, and the others say yes, it does add that additional height to pruning.
Okay.
But I think we all heard what you said, and now we understand the safety mechanisms. So.
Okay. All right. I wonder why we're not sharing here. I'll try it again. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. It's one of those things that you're never quite sure. Share.
There you go.
Okay. Current slide. Okay. Come on. There we go. Can you see it now, Gator?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So again, I've really discovered pole pruners, and I've really been excited about them. They have improved greatly in the last few years. They're more stable. They're more compact. You can take them around easily. And they generally have attached one of those razor saws with them that prune really well. The bottom right-hand corner shows a power pruner, which is basically a chainsaw on the end of a telescopic pole. And you can see this person is really well protected with the right headgear, the gloves, the eye protection, the earmuffs, all those things. Power pruners can be expensive. So a gas Model 1 like this one here from Steel probably is going to run in about the $550 range. So probably more of a professional tool than one that someone needs for their own yard, unless you're doing lots of pruning. There are ones that are run by electricity. Obviously, being a power company, we like hearing that. But I have one that I've bought for about $80, and sometimes I've seen them cheaper than that at the $60 range. And they're electric with obviously you got to have an extension cord, but you know what? They work as well. The thing I find with them compared to the pole pruner, or more the manual one, is my arms and my shoulders tend to get hard and heavy, because it's the weight of that saw on the end. And the farther I extend it out, the more tension I feel in my shoulders. I get really tired. So it does it quickly. And that's the other thing. It does it with the chainsaw, fast and quick. But it really works when you're really working with a thicker branch that's kind of hard to do with a pole saw. Okay. So I really like this. This kind of keeps you safely on the ground and gets you off of the ladder. If you can't do it with a pole pruner, that's when you really need to ask a professional. So there was that one question about the fruit tree that they wanted to prune. Can you do it with a pole pruner? And the answer would be yes. If you can reach up in that 24 to 30 foot range, and you can buy one like that, they're about $100 or so. They make a really tremendous difference, and it really works well. The one challenge you have is the farther that extension of that telescopic pole comes out, the harder it is to make sure you're cutting the branch collar and protecting it. Okay, so you got to be really careful, but use the same technique, the 3-step cut, undercut, take the weight off, and go to the branch collar as best as you can. All right. So again, this would be one I'd love to demonstrate. I was telling Janda before that I got a pole pruner here, this new one here a few weeks ago. I tried it out and I have fallen in love with it. But the challenge is I can cut more with that pole pruner than I thought I could. And I create a lot of stuff on the ground that I got to cut up and put in my landscape barrels. So just keep in mind, pole pruning can create probably in about 15 minutes. It take you about an hour and a half to 2 hours to put all that stuff and jam it into your landscape barrel so it can be composted. So success. Here it is. The concept is a properly branched collar. And it's saying in here, it's saying branches heal well, they don't heal, they seal. But you can see that that donut or that callus wound growth around it is almost uniform in the way it's surrounding the wound. So there's a fairly large branch. This is 1 year. Probably if we come back in 2 years, it's completely sealed over. Now, here's question 5, Gator, if you want to put that one up.
Actually, I omitted that one for the other, but we can ask everybody and answer in the chat if you could. Have you participated in the green, in our tree coupon program? And that's a yes, no, or I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead and answer that in the question in the chat if you could, please.
So I just want to let everyone know the City of Tacoma Environmental Services, the Puyallup Watershed Initiative, and Tacoma Power have joined together to support the planting of trees in people's yards with this coupon, which is $30 off a tree for up to 3 trees from participating nurseries. How you get this coupon is you go to the website, thecityoftacoma.org/tree coupon, and you enter in your address and it will tell you if you are qualified or not. So you just have to live in Pierce County. You don't have to be a resident of Tacoma. You don't have to be a Tacoma Power customer. We love when it's our customers, of course. And you will be eligible to receive a coupon that is good until the end of March. Now, the bad news I'm going to give you is there's about 120 coupons left. We had an allocation of 2,500. And so we can't do any more. It's kind of a budget type thing. So if you can't get one this year, we will do it again next year and you can get on the waiting list. So I just want to give you an idea. Again,
John, real quick about the coupon. Is it a one-time deal? They can only get it once. Is that true?
That is correct. Well, you can get the coupon more than once, but you can only redeem a coupon and be eligible to get it. So
I see.
If you get a coupon and you don't redeem it, you can apply for another coupon.
Okay.
But if you get a coupon and you redeem it, then you can't do it for 3 years. We're trying to spread the wealth around because it's a very popular program.
And also, the City of Tacoma is dealing with an equity solution and trying to make sure that certain neighborhoods get priority because of systems in place that weren't allowing trees built in or planted in the past, is my understanding. So,
well, we basically are trying to let people know across our region the opportunity. There are other programs that also target neighborhoods and things like that. But for this case here, this tree coupon is open to anybody that resides in Pierce County.
Cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. So I'm going to go to our last one. And I guess, Gator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
Let me do that. And then I will come back on camera.
Okay.
And are there any questions that we want to ask? I know we've just hit 11, past 11:30, but I'm more than willing for a few minutes to talk.
We do have a couple of questions. One about the tree coupon. It's recommended on ornamental trees, or can you do fruit trees instead?
It is generally the trees. We're recommending the use of shade trees, and they have to be a certain size. Fruit trees would work. Ornamental trees would work. So flowering crab apples, dogwoods, flowering cherries, all those are going to work. A lot of it depends on your yard. So an example would be if you have a yard, you don't have a lot of space, or you have overhead utility wires, you might want to plant a smaller, lower growing tree. If you have a yard that could utilize and be balanced out with a shade tree to shade your home during the summer so your air conditioning isn't running, that's what we're looking at too. So it can be as long as it is at least a 5-gallon container or larger, it is eligible.
Excellent. And then someone wanted to know about a good way to find a landscaper. They paid a company who did everything wrong. All the bad examples that you just showed us, are they licensed and bonded, but they were licensed and bonded, but clearly not trained. Is there any way, like, how do you find someone that you recommend, or how do you find someone that does the right job?
Okay. Well, what I would tell you is there is an organization called the International Society of Arboriculture, or ISA. ISA basically means that you're a member of that organization, you have a ethics, you're trained, and there are people that are called certified arborists. And that's what I do. I have training. I passed a test, both a field test and answer test, and I have to do continuing education to maintain that ISA standard. So if you look and you see, and it says that they have an ISA certified arborist, you're dealing with somebody that's probably very well trained and up to date on doing the good work. So that would be my first one. If you go to, I think the ISA, the International Society of Arboriculture, look it up on Google. There is a way where you can actually hit a link and it'll tell you how to find an arborist right down to the city level.
Thank you. Society of Arborists?
International Society of Arboriculture.
Arboriculture. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I'm spelling that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Arboriculture.
Google's pretty forgiving if you type
that
it in.
Is true. That is true. So good. Let's see. One other question. Let's see. Oh, best way to bonsai and ornamental. Do I just keep snipping?
Wow. I wish I could tell you that I am an expert at everything about trees, but bonsais are not my best. I know there is a bonsai society, and I know they have a website. I've met them in the past at different events. And I know there's, the bonsai collection here at the Weyerhaeuser facility, former Weyerhaeuser facility there in Federal Way. So I think I would try and find the Bonsai Association and get networked with them because they are very helpful. My one bonsai tree I didn't do a very good job on, and mine died. So that tells me I didn't do a good job. But I've always been enhanced with it, and I would success. I'm talking with them at an exhibit booth. I met them about a year or so ago. The association, a bonsai association, would be great, or society.
Yeah, and I would say at the once we can go back to the Puyallup Fair, there's always going to be a display and a good place to meet people. So excellent. Janda also posted a link to the Tacoma Tool Library. So look that up if you're in the Tacoma area and you need tools and you're not able to spend the money on the tools. Go check out the Tool Library and see if they have what you need, or get on their list and figure out how we can support that. So that's a great community project there. Yeah, go ahead, Janda.
I just wanted to add that during the COVID shutdown until things change, there is no walk-in. They have moved recently to the Tacoma Public Library, and they are taking orders, reservations. You can call, you can email, and then they will deliver on certain days. They deliver whatever tools it is that you're asking for.
Excellent. I think we can turn on our video. We'll see how that goes, and we can start wrapping it up. Someone has suggested that bonsai pruning is just like a miniature application of the 5 golden rules, maybe. So maybe.
I would agree. I think that's it. It's just much more intense because you're trying to do it. I think I always remember, I think it was the Karate Kid, where the one gentleman was just pruning with little hand pruners, almost like other, very tiny things, but doing it all the time. Every day he was doing some pruning.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So it's similar practice. The one thing I can tell you is, and that was my mistake, I left my bonsai tree inside, and they have to be outside. So you got to keep that in mind. They can be inside for a while, but they really need to be outside too. They don't harden off if you leave them in the house. That's what my tree didn't do well. And then too much water is not a good thing too.
Well, John, thank you for joining us and for giving us this presentation. It's always informative. I would like to say, we again apologize for the technical difficulties, but thank you everyone for helping out with that. Yes, there will be, this is being recorded and it will be made available shortly. We're still in kind of influx on how we're going to make these available. You should get an email as soon as it is available. You can also check this and other past webinars on cityofTacoma.org/workshops, and you can find posts to the past videos and a log of what's coming up in the future, which webinars we're going to have. So
And also how to register there.
how to register,
when
yes.
you go to the website, the EnviroHouse website, the first selection that you'll see are the upcoming webinars, and they're all up there for March. We're working on April and May now. So you can register there, and then you can find the past ones that we've done so far this year and from the ones that we did last year. So you should be able to hear those recordings on that website. And we will send out an email with the links that are in the chat and the other information, recordings and so on and so forth.
And don't forget, next Saturday, 10:30 a.m., recycle. It'll be the Recycle Reset. A lot of great information about recycling in Tacoma. Fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining us. John, thanks again.
Mm-hmm. And I did just send my email address to people. And so You're certainly welcome in the chat to feel free to email me. I'm more than glad to answer tree questions or anything that you need. If you run into problems in registering your tree for your address for the tree coupon, it's happened occasionally. Feel free to email me. I can try it and we can see if we can help you out.
Fantastic. Thank you everybody for attending. We're going to end this webinar now.
And
Bye,
John,
everybody.
have John stay on for a minute.
Certainly.
Yeah.
You and John stay on for a minute.
Oh, I have that other meeting set. So
Okay.
we got to get everybody out first. So.
Oh, okay.